The machine gun was a product of the Second Industrial Revolution. Its development was initiated by American-born Hiram Maxim's invention for the first automatic firearm in 1883. By harnessing the energy released from firing a cartridge, Maxim produced a weapon capable of discharging multiple bullets by simply activating the trigger. His innovation prompted wider development of automatic firearms in pistols, rifles, and of course, machine guns. From the late 1880s, their military potential was hugely enhanced by the availability of small caliber, smokeless cartridges. By 1914, all major combatants had furnished their armies with machine guns, or on a similar scale to that issue. Russia, Germany, and Britain used guns based on the Maxim system, while France and Austria-Hungary used their indigenous designs like the model 1907 Saint-Estienne, or the Hotchkiss, and the Schwarzschluss, respectively, though they were still used the Maxim gun in times of need. Following the onset of positional warfare, machine guns gained notoriety as highly effective direct-fire weapons. They could theoretically fire over 500 rounds per minute, but this was not normal in combat, where rapid fire generally consisted of repeated bursts amounting to 250 RPM. The effectiveness of these bursts of between 10 to 50 bullets was enchanted by the exploitation of ballistics and the precision offered by firing from adjustable mounts. At ranges of 600 meters or less, machine guns could create fixed lines of fire, which would never rise higher than a man's head, but with deadly results to those attempting to advance across no man's land. At ranges of 600 meters or less, machine guns could create fixed lines of fire, which would never rise higher than a man's head, but with deadly results when they attempted to advance across no man's land. Or the gun could have been traversed between bursts, or for what the French will call the feu flashant, or the moving fire. At long ranges, their bullets fell in an elliptical beating zone, giving them an area of effect and area fire capability. Groups of guns could interlock their fire. In favorable circumstances, such as in the Battle of Loos on the 26th of September 1915, or at the Battle of the Somme on the 1st of July 1916, this could prove devastating for the attackers or the defenders. But although this is how machine guns are best remembered, new methods of using them were developed from 1915 onwards, and the LMGs, the SMGs, and even the assault rifle were starting to take shape in 1915 onwards. In October 1915, the British Army placed all of its Vickers machine guns under the control of the newly created Machine Gun Corps, a development replicated in the Dominion contingents on the Western Front. This radical yet controversial step was taken to regularize something that had become a tactical necessity: the grouping of all the machine guns in combat, but with all the Army's machine gun experts in one corps. It also stimulated innovation. The most notable outcome was the machine gun barrage. Groups of guns, centrally controlled, were used to fire upon pre-plotted target areas. By exploiting the curved trajectory followed by the bullets and the bullet drop, machine guns could fire indirectly, like miniature artillery pieces, even over the heads of their friendly troops, to make suppression for the enemy. These techniques required accurate maps and a firm basis in mathematical calculation. Importantly, given the strategic imperatives of the Western Front forced the British onto the offensive, this meant that the machine gun could be used to support the attack. Machine gun fire was used to thicken the meticulously planned artillery barrage that preceded the British and Dominion assaults, such as Vimy Ridge and Messines Ridge in April and June of 1917. Even more crucial, when tactically used with the SOS barrages, fired in response to flares set up by infantry facing enemy counterattacks. SOS barrages exploited the beaten zone of long-range machine gun fire to saturate a pre-registered area over which the counter-attacking forces were likely to advance and be slaughtered whole-scale. Other armies began to adopt this scientific form of machine gunnery. Both the French army and the German army's specialist machine gun marksman detachments began to use indirect and overhead fire during late 1917. The American Expeditionary Forces also employed this tactic during 1918 as well. All armies were united in a desire to equip all their troops with as many machine guns as possible. This was not achieved without effort, however. Britain and Russia were hampered by the inadequate manufacturing bases, which only the former was able to overcome since Russia Revolution. France was able to augment and even supplant the M1907 Saint-Estienne gun for a far superior weapon made by Hotchkiss of Paris. Germany began with the best manufacturing infrastructure and went the furthest in making sure that the machine gun was the chief provider of the infantry's firepower. By 1917, some German formations were reporting that the machine gun consumed as much as 90% of their small ammunitions per day. The less industrially developed powers were obligated to purchase their machine guns from their allies such as Romania, Bulgaria, the Asiatic and even the African colonies, with even Britain and France and Russia needing guns from Denmark, the United States and even Sweden. Only the Italians possessed a limited capacity for production, and even then they still needed guns from everyone else. Automatic weapon technology underlaid one of the First World War's many lasting doctrinal innovations, the provision of automatic firepower for small units. Armies swiftly identified requirements for portable automatic weapons that could be carried into the attack to suppress the enemy defensive fire. Britain was lucky enough to just have such a weapon, the Lewis gun, entering commercial production as the war began in 1914. The French put a pre-war experimental automatic rifle, the SRG, into production, which would transform into the Chauchat. By 1916, both armies had begun to develop these weapons at the platoon level. Germany took longer to develop a light machine gun. The demands of its war economy meant that the weapon had to be based upon the existing Maschinengewehr 08 machine gun. The result was the Maschinengewehr 08/15, which appeared in early 1917. This was more cumbersome than its allied counterparts, but could potentially deliver more firepower. Since it was just a scaled-down version of the Maschinengewehr 08, it became the most common German machine gun, intensifying the growth in machine gun use by the German army. On demand in 1914, the Germans deployed 3.5 machine guns per kilometer of front. In the same area in 1918, the figure per kilometer was 31.5. During the autumn of 1918, machine guns proved to be the core of every German defensive deployment. Small unit tactics changed profoundly as light machine guns and automatic rifles took their place, with hand grenades and grenade launchers alongside the traditional rifle and bayonet. Their presence permitted independent actions by platoons, facilitating the development of more flexible infantry tactics. These advances originated on the Western Front, but were followed elsewhere. Russia tried to set up a production of Danish Maxim light machine guns. Austria-Hungary produced light mounts of its Swaschluss gun, and Italy adopted the curious Villa Porosa machine gun pistol. The latter would be the precursor to what would be known as the submachine gun. More developed examples will see very limited service in the Italian Automatico and the German Hans, the machine and pistol 1918, in late 1918. The American Expeditionary Force adopted the weapons and the tactics of the Allies, but the USA had indigenous weapons under development. A machine gun and automatic rifle, both designed by John Moses Browning himself, the Browning M1917 machine gun and the BAR, saw service during the last few weeks of World War I. No figures exist for the number of gunshot wound casualties caused by the machine gun, but their establishment as the chief vector of infantry firepower suggests that the proportion was vastly higher than that caused by rifle fire, though artillery was still king. The First World War saw the machine gun reach its strength as a battlefield weapon. In later wars, it would find itself both threatened and supplanted by other weapon systems such as the assault rifle and notably the mortar. The development of portable automatic weapons for the infantry was, however, to have a lasting legacy, forming the basis of the small unit tactics of modern times, and the birth of the LMG, and the machine gun would become far lighter, far faster, and more efficient at killing. Does the MG42, or its proper nickname, Hitler's Buzzsaw, ring a bell? Learn something.